Here.
Chelsea Mena. Adeline Zer. Crystal Hung.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
All right. The minutes from the October meeting have been presented. Does anyone have any corrections to the minutes?
No.
All right, well, with no corrections requested, the minutes are approved. Moving on, the agenda has been provided. Are there any requested additions or any changes? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. And I will now turn the floor over to Superintendent Carpenter.
All right, you run a very good meeting, by the way. Nice job. Hello to everybody, and happy November. Happy to be and surprised to be already to parent-teacher conferences. Very big next Monday and Tuesday for our school district. As this is really our first opportunity to get the chance to engage face-to-face with parents and their child's teacher, which is so important. As now we're 3 months into learning, 3 months into behaviors, 3 months into routines. And so this is a great opportunity for parents to get feedback. And for those who are watching live, as well as for this committee, this is the opportunity to ask those questions. And so please don't be shy. Come prepared to ask specific questions. Our teachers have gotten to know children extremely well at this point. And so any help that you might need at home, or vice versa, any help that we might need at home, this is the great opportunity to do that. We continue to have great attendance at the elementary levels. It becomes more of a struggle to get parent participation in the middle school and high school levels. And so these are things that we're actively working on as an attempt to try to reach all families inside our organization. I do just have a quick update that I wanted to share with everybody because we've got a lot of big work to do today, and I'm excited about that. But one of the things I wanted to share with the RISE committee is a pending storm that's looming at the state level regarding finances. And then I'm going to talk to you about another issue that's coming up that's pretty significant to Estacada as well. But Oregon runs its budget, the state, on a 2-year biennium, and this is year 1 of that 2-year biennium. And Oregon's established their 2-year budget at $39.7 billion. And of that 39.7, that pays for state police, state parks, Department of Transportation, you name it, DHS, and schools, of course, too. Schools represent about 11.4 billion of that 37 billion I was talking about. The issue is, and Oregon is starting to panic as of the month of September, because a lot of businesses have moved out of the Portland and Oregon area. A lot of people, individuals, have moved out of Oregon, the state in general, to Utah, Nevada, Idaho, Florida, Texas, and different places. Well, the problem that Oregon is just now beginning to realize is that $39.7 billion budget, which is generated from the taxes that we all pay to the state, they're concerned they're not going to be able to hit that $39.7 billion in revenue that they're expected. And so what the governor, as of September, has asked all state agencies to do is to create a 3% and a 5% reduction plan. So that's across the board, state police, Department of Transportation, etc. And so this impacts Estacada, who's actually right now in pretty good financial shape because we're growing in enrollment and we've done some really good things to make sure that we're fiscally stable. But, our budget right now is $51 million, but that's what we expect the state to pay us. And so if the state moves forward with a 3% reduction, then we also will expect to receive basically 3% less from what we intended to. And so our team right now is just, quietly working behind the scenes. We're in a good enough spot where we should be able to weather kind of the first blow from the state of Oregon because of our reserves funds and our end fund balances. And I want to thank Commissioner Snyder, who serves on our budget committee and helped us build a great package when it comes to that. But I also just wanted to make you all aware of it. The most recent Budget forecast for the state came out today. We were, last month, the state expected to be 900 million in the red, and today we're expecting to be 600 million in the red. And so things are getting better, but we're not out of the woods yet. And so as we get closer to preparing our budget for next year, knowing that times are going to be tough for the next couple of years in the state of Oregon, you can expect that we will be bringing, our budget proposals to you so that you can have eyes on them and make sure that we're funding and supporting some of the priorities as well from this lens and perspective as well. So just wanted to share that with you with more information to come. But I wanted to share this with you because if you read the news or watch any local news channel, like Portland Public is freaking out and they're identifying $50 million worth of things they need to cut now. Salem Kaiser is looking at a $91 million cut. Reynolds School District needs to make a $10 million cut like instantly to even finish this year, above ground. And so I just wanted to share this with you in hopes that you might be able to convey this to the community if asked, that while everyone sees these other school districts who are starting to make immediate actions, we're actually in pretty good shape and we don't intend to make any adjustments for this year. We can stay the course, but next year could be a little bit different and we're going to need to be mindfully planning through that. So that's the number one thing I wanted to share with you. And the second thing, if you have read any articles in the Oregonian the last couple of days, there's been a pretty controversial issue that is important to Estacada. And I want to share this with you because I think at some point I may need your help in this process. And that is this: there was an employee from the Oregon Department of Education who works in the analytics department, and he had discovered that the state was paying schools inaccurately, particularly students who are experiencing life in poverty, or in that realm. And so just to explain that really quickly, every kid who walks in our door is worth one ADM. This is like nerd school talk, but I'm just sharing it with you. One ADM, and that equals about $10,000 per kid. But if the student is also on special education, we get an extra ADM for that kid to give them their services. So that would be $20,000 for that particular kid. If you're a student who lives in poverty, we get a half weight for that type of a student. So we get the $10,000 right off the bat, and then anyone living in poverty, that would be an additional $5,000 to help support that, is kind of how we do that from a budgeting standpoint. The issue is the state of Oregon was looking at census data to determine which children qualified at the poverty level. But that data was extremely outdated and inaccurate, and the state of Oregon actually possessed the list of people who were on SNAP benefits and other types of things that described children in poverty, and they chose not to look at those things. And so school districts like us, 61% of our students qualify for poverty. We were underfunded. And school districts like Lake Oswego, Westland, Wilsonville, Portland Public, Beaverton were specifically mentioned in this article, were overpaid by the state. So basically they took the money that should have been ours. They didn't do it on purpose. The state gave them the money and they, without question, cashed the check. But that being said, this has been going on, says the employee at the Department of Education, since 2013. And so school districts like ours, like Salem Kaiser School District, and a lot of very rural Eastern Oregon communities, since 2013, they believe that we've missed about, collectively, all of us put together, about $290 million in unpaid funds. And so this employee tried, according to the lawsuit, to notify their supervisor, to notify the Department of Education of this discrepancy. And according to this employee, the Department of Education just kind of said, no, we're not going to do it. You need to stop doing this kind of stuff. And so the employee leaked this information to the Oregonian, and 2 days later, the employee was fired. And so the employee, and this is just background story, the employee is now obviously suing the Department of Education for damages and for retaliation for being a whistleblower. So that's how we got here, but now the problem exists of school districts like Estacada haven't been paid what we should have been legally paid. And so we're working through the process with Salem Keizer School District and some other entities to see what actions we can take to make sure that our kids get the money that they deserve to get and what the law says they're supposed to get. And so this is kind of new and up and coming, but it's a pretty hot button topic in the news right now. And Estacada is one of the top 20 districts who lost the most money in this. And so you can expect for me to give you some updates as this goes. Right now, I'm kind of researching and talking to people to see what actions we can possibly take. But I just wanted to make you aware of that because the whole intent of this RISE committee is to make sure our underrepresented, underserved students get what they're supposed to get in terms of an equitable education. And here is a classic point of where the state has shortchanged, literally, our students who need those finances the most to work through the process. So those are my two big topic, things I wanted to share with you today that I think are pertinent to our team and this committee of what we're trying to create. And I hope to provide you with more information regarding that. But that's my update today. And I'd take any questions if you have any.
Does it, from what you've said, does it appear that of all the money that went out of the Oregon Department of Education, $290 million has simply gone to a different place
Correct.
than been withheld?
Yep,
So
that's right.
it went there rather than here?
Yep,
Okay.
and they actually named specific school districts that got overpaid when we should have gotten the money.
Right, but it's not as if we can go and knock on, like Beaverton's door and say,
Yeah.
give us our money. It's all
Yeah.
through the
I
Oregon
did send a
Department.
text message to a couple of my friends' school districts that got the money, and I said, we take Venmo. If they want to just go ahead and send it right now. And
That's
of course, they laughed, but this is a major concern
Yeah.
for them too. Because like you said, they got the money, they built a budget around the money, they executed the money in their local school districts. But some of these school districts that I named are also in a tremendous financial crisis as we speak. And so to take back maybe $10 million from Beaverton, in addition to the $20 million they need to cut, like this is harming all school districts based on the Department of Education's potential mistake.
It's my understanding, too, that Salem Keizer had a big push regarding this, too.
Yes.
And that's what, I read the article this morning myself, and
Yeah.
that they were the ones kind of to initiate it from
Yeah.
the school district side?
Yep, they are
Okay.
leading the charge, and
Okay.
obviously they're a gigantic school district, so they had the personnel resources to do the data, really with a magnifying glass, look at everything. And so at this point, we're following Salem Keizer's lead on this, but their numbers look right. Yeah.
Understood.
Sounds like we should also provide a job to the original whistleblower data analyst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that person works for Salem Keizer right now, but.
Oh, that's probably how it ended up,
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
It's possible, yeah.
I was just wondering if there's a remedy or solution we have in place moving forward as a school district to have somebody who
Yeah,
can know what
monitors.
the numbers are supposed to be
Yeah.
and that it's coming to us.
Yeah, for sure. And yes is the answer to that question. There's a learning thing. This particular one is one that happened, and there was no way we could have seen it because how the Department of Education basically funds us is we take our best guess at what we think is going to start the school year with us. And so we submit, like this year we submitted 1,956 kids. And we kind of put in there, who identifies as special education, who identifies in poverty, who's pregnant. We get money for that as well. And so we put all that in there, and they just basically say back to us, great, you got $51 million. So there's really no way for us to nickel and dime what that looks like. So thankfully, someone in the Department of Education's back end was able to say, hold on a minute, we're not funding this type of student appropriately. But in the meantime, yeah, this definitely hurts our trust with the
Yeah.
state agency whose sole responsibility it is to fund us and then hold us accountable to making sure that we comply with all laws as well. Yeah.
I had a question is, so those funds that you missed out, would that had help like with building new buildings, getting different? No,
No,
okay.
that particular one wouldn't, but it certainly would have helped us potentially hire a second social worker,
Understood.
or an additional counselor, or
Okay.
another field trip, something more educationally aligned. Yep. Technically, no, but you will get your turn for sure. Yep. Okay, so that's your superintendent report.
All right, well, if there's nothing else to discuss, we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is Safe Routes to School program, and we're going to have a presentation by Ms. Danny Randall.
Hi, everybody. I apologize for my voice. I'm going to try to do the best I can. I'm happy to present to you guys what's going on currently with our collaboration with community partners in the city of Estacada. So I'm a representative for the school district, working with them to do a Safe Routes to School program. So giving you a little bit of a backstory, the city of Estacada received a grant through the Thriving Communities program, and their main focus with the funds that they received was to make sure that the areas around the school district is safe and that our students are safe coming and going from school. So we are working with them collaboratively to make sure that they have all the information that they need so that they can deep dive into how to make a program to show the city where their funds should go for infrastructure. So this is super important at this moment in time. So we're moving into our upcoming grade reconfiguration. And when we presented on that in the past, you guys had the same concerns as most of our families have presented, which how are we going to navigate with elementary students at Clackamas River or River Mill when there's families that are split between the two? This works out really well because as we're meeting with these people and we're in the very early stages, I'm able to communicate with them that that's something that we are concerned with and what the city can do to move forward with making sure that either our students feel comfortable walking, biking, or maybe finding a centrally located location where they feel safe where a parent can pick them up. So at the moment, we are just coming together as a group, building a long-term plan for sustainability for our growing capacity. The folks that I've been working with Safe Routes to School are surprised at our growing population, and they were saying that typically they don't handle cities or school districts that are saying like, we want you to plan for next year, not the current school year. But we are being very clear to them that we are an anomaly here in Estacada and we need them to be really thinking forward in the future on how our students can be safe. So right now, what I'm doing to help the process is providing them with our student data. So our enrollment data, our projections that we received when we were getting ready to propose the school bond. We will be providing site plans, number of students that are within the boundary that doesn't receive transportation from us, along with, in the future, providing a caregiver survey. So we will be reaching out via Parent Square likely with a survey from the Safe Routes partners that really want to ask people, what are your concerns with your student walking, coming and going? It's going to cater to our community and kind of the rural aspect that we are in, considering a lot of our students are not in a place where they can be walking, but we really do want to make sure that if they are in the area that they can travel to and fro safely. So eventually, moving forward, we will be having like a evening community open house where we will have community input coming forward, and we can utilize that if you guys have any questions about that or you want to participate in those committees or coming up with survey questions. I'm happy to work with you. We're really looking forward to letting the city of Estacada kind of fund some projects that will help our students safely, and then looking into next year when parents are concerned about pick up and drop off, we can tell them that we've done our due diligence to make sure that we've looked at it from every angle. So when we have more plans and site maps and things that their suggestions that the Safe Routes to School is providing, I'll make sure and share that with you guys. Any questions?
I do just want to recognize the city of Estacada, who's been a great partner with us in ensuring those safe routes to schools with kids. And, as all the new neighborhoods have been, built and established, the city has done a phenomenal job of making sure that there's a connected sidewalk from all of those homes to all of our schools and crosswalk. And in my opinion, that's above and beyond, what the city's requirement is to do, and I really appreciate that. We're working together right now on street lighting projects to make sure that the crosswalks are better lit. And I'm excited to share with all of you as a part of just the Safe Routes to School, and this is going to come as a pleasant victory for us, is the intersection by Big Jim's and Granny's and on the way into Rivermill. They're going to be putting a four-way stop there. So that should help the congestion of both before and after school. And so I thank Danny for her work on this, and we're going to continue to build great plans to make sure that our students have safe access to our schools. But I just wanted you all to know that the city has been fantastic too.
I do want to chime in on that, where this was performed, this same project was performed in 2017, and I just received all the plans that were made at that point, and the city highlighted what they had completed that was suggested, and they have done a lot of work
Yes.
that has made it safe for the district. And, there will be things that on our end that we can do. What it looked like in 2017 was a lot of signage change. It wasn't, big infrastructure changes, as we know. That would be a tricky situation for us to be in, which is what's fabulous about the city, is wanting to prioritize our students' safety and working with us. So we are very appreciative, and I'm looking forward to seeing the outcome of the project.
All right. Well, if
I
there
have a
are,
quick question.
yeah.
I think I missed, who did the grant go to? Was it the city or the school district?
The city, so the
City,
city of
okay.
Estacada, and it was a Thriving Communities grant. So
Okay,
they're
thank you.
utilizing the funds for three things, but they're prioritizing us. And then they're going to be working with the fire department and other upcoming projects as well. But their main goal was safety issues around school zones, so that's what they would spend their funds on.
Thank you.
any other comments? All right, well, we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is a discussion on racism by Superintendent Carpenter.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, and I don't have that data in front of me, maybe you have that. I'm really excited to kind of get into this conversation, although I think tonight is just going to be the start of what I'd hope will be multiple conversations around this. Obviously, racism is something that is an issue in our school district, and I will vulnerably accept that and acknowledge that. And one of the things that I just wanted to be able to, and I hope to talk less about this because this should be an open conversation about opportunities for us to grow and improve, and I'm excited for this committee to share feedback, experience, as well as some strategies of how we can continue to improve that. But we know that this school district is still working through, some racism, hate, and different types of things. And I also want to acknowledge that while the school district plays a very important role, so does our community as a whole, as well as parents. One of the things that we've always encountered in terms of difficulty is when we work with a kid and family who has made either a racial claim, slur, or behavior or action, oftentimes there is seldom support on the parent end in terms of helping us correct some of those behaviors, leading us back into some of these vicious cycles. I will say over the last couple of years, and the data that Maggie is creating or pulling up right now will indicate that we as a district as a whole have improved when you look at the number of school rule violations and some of those other types of referral things. But that doesn't mean it's gone. In fact, we still have a lot of work to do. And as Maggie pulls this up, one of the things that is important to share is as of today, this school year, we have had 5 specific bias incident or discrimination type claims. 2 of them are at the middle school, 2 of them are at Rivermill Elementary School, and 1 of them is at the high school. And again, these are the students coming forward or things that we're witnessing. We know that there are things happening, you know, that we're unaware of in that work. But I did want to share that to this point, we're at 5. And that's better than what we've been, but that's still 5, in my opinion, too many. Also, in the Healthy Teen Survey, which you all had the opportunity to look at, was very controversial amongst our community just 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I felt like we were trying our best to address some of those concerns and received a lot of support and praise for it as well. But in last year's survey, which I shared on Facebook Live to the people willing to listen, is that the question is, oh yeah, there we go. I think this school welcomes and respects students of all races and ethnicities. And 25% of our whole student population who took it strongly agreed with that. 41% of our student population agreed with that. But 13.9% disagreed with that. And 11% strongly disagreed with that. So basically a quarter of our students, the whole entire student population, and while everybody didn't take the survey, this is definitely a statistically sound sample size. It's for me to say the whole school district, 25% of our students think that this place does not welcome or respect students of races and ethnicities. And this is something that we need to tackle. I'm excited to work on this with you and would love your help and guidance in working towards this process. So I'm just going to stop, and if you want to add anything.
I mean, the other nice thing is that this survey is normed, and when we look at the state level, there are certainly more students in Estacada that say that our school is not welcoming and respecting of students of all races and ethnicities. So we do fare worse than at the state level, which is definitely an area to address. And you may remember, we went over the student health survey data a couple of meetings ago, but I can send this data to you again.
Yes. And really, as Maggie's saying this is just a good stat to write down as we have the conversation. I said 25% of our kids disagree that it's a welcoming place. In correspondence, that is only 9% of the state says that about their school. So we are disproportionately higher than the state.
I do not think I was here the week that we went over the survey. My question is, how many of our students identify as other than Caucasian in our school district?
That's a great
Is it
question.
25%?
It's less than that, but that's a decent guess. I know that at least the last time I checked, which was the beginning of the school year, we were 17% Hispanic. And I'm unsure of the others, but we can actually tell you that from last year's data. But I would say it's 19%, yeah, close,
Pretty close.
yeah.
So that's a very interesting number, because I had a question much along the same lines, that if the non-Caucasian people are the ones who represented that 25%, what it actually tells me is something much more concerning than 25%, in that all the white guys think that everything's all fine, but the people that it really affects.
I think that's a truth, yes.
It is a truism
Yeah.
of that. That's very deeply concerning.
Yeah,
It's easy to say that everyone's accommodated if you're not part of the minority who is affected by that.
yes. I think the data would tell us that is a more true statement than untrue, for sure. And my experience in this community would suggest that as well.
I guess my question would be, and me and you have talked about it in meetings before, is what is our plan to utilize this data to change that? I know I had met with Dr. Shields last year because of the issues that my son had with racism, and she had mentioned that they had some programs that they were trying to put into place, but just in, the conversations I've had with my son, it doesn't seem like that's kind of gotten off the ground yet.
Yeah.
And so, we've got this data, we've shared this data with the community, but what are we doing? Because it sends a really hurtful message to the students of color that we hear you, we see you, but there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
Because these other people who are the majority are comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you loud and clear, and I will tell you that we have not done enough. And the things that we have planned have not, taken off on the ground yet. I mean, there's some spot things that are happening. I think that what Dr. Shields and Kate Dean are doing actively right now is probably leading the charge in the work at Estacada Middle School. But from a whole district perspective, we're not doing anything near something that would meet our satisfaction. And this is where I'm hoping for help tonight. And I hope this committee, we've been looking for something to kind of take a leadership role in. And this is something that I would love to partner with you with so that we can find, create, or do something to start chipping away at this in a more active leadership way.
A better reporting data set at the moment would be that if 75% said that we were not accommodating ethnic minorities, because that would actually indicate
Awareness?
awareness
Yeah.
that although I'm not a person of color, I care about our community enough to recognize that, no, I'm white and I do not think that people of color are welcomed and respected.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I have our demographic data from the survey. District-wide, and this was only in certain grades, but in the students that took the survey, 9% identified as Native American, 8% identified as Asian, 4% Black or African American, 21% Hispanic or Latino, 5% Pacific Islander, 3% Middle Eastern, 1% North African, 60% white. Oh, sorry, 80% white.
There you go.
So that
call 'em over.
speaks to what I just said.
Yeah.
The majority think everything's fine. That's the real
Yeah.
thing we need to focus on, is being respectful and compassionate towards your fellow human being. Because, of course, that's how the data would skew, because it doesn't affect the majority. And that's the education we need to bring in about this.
Well, and I think also the fact that you said that there are only 5 that actually did report it, it also makes me wonder
Yes.
who hasn't reported.
It's like bullying, the bullying.
Yeah, exactly.
Do they report it?
Yeah. Typically, when racism or reports of racism, the student who is either the victim or the witness typically goes to either the principal, vice principal, or an adult that they trust, and we work through the process there. That's what's in place now, and that's just the truth. It's not good enough.
No.
It's nothing they can do anonymously?
What's that?
They do.
They do.
They have a
Yep.
QR code at the
Yes.
middle school.
Yeah, I think only at the middle
Yeah.
school, though. Yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah.
But if,
What's that?
No, more cell phones in the classroom, so
Yeah,
that might be tricky.
Yeah.
I would say that, yeah, my son said that you can report it, but he says that nothing gets done. I mean, he actually asked me, and next time somebody says something, could he hit him? And I told him no, but, and I talked him through that. But the thing is I think we mess up on this, is the people who feel like this, you're not gonna change them. Just like we was talking about, the bond. It's the kids coming up, the type of education and like this summer when my son is able to be in the program that Ms. Bettina and my wife did, he seemed that it felt better because he was up front leading that. He was introducing the kids to the middle school. And I just think that if you have more people of color doing that with the younger generation. You're not going to change the older generation. This is a hundreds of years issue that's been with the United States. And the people that feel like that, usually they groom their kids to do it.
Yes.
And that's the problem, is that when you're grooming your kids to do it, but to fight that is to educate the kids and see that, that we shouldn't be looking at color, but looking at us as being fellow human beings.
Yes, yeah.
You know, and so, and I just hate to say it, the atmosphere in the country is not,
Conducive
no.
Yeah.
It's people that feel like that is making them even more emboldened to do it, to say that you're woke and I should be able to do this, and don't hold me accountable for what happened to your ancestors hundreds of years ago, or however you want to put it.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that the older crowd is not going to change. And it's going to come with the younger crowd being exposed and understanding that we're all fellow human beings, and you know, color is just a pigment.
Yeah.
You know.
And, you know, I guess one way to look at it, and this doesn't provide a very immediate solution, is to start to build a culture that doesn't accept racism, that in the same way that a male student in the 50s may have behaved differently with a female student in the 50s. Things are not where they need to be, but they're better than they used to be. And if we draw the line today and say that we are going to move our school culture ahead so that gradually the data improve, the fact that 5 people complained when 25% of people in the overall study said that we're not welcome,
Yep.
5 is not the truth. 5 people complaining is not the truth.
Agreed. Yep.
I think that we cannot solve this today, but we can start to solve it today by
Yeah.
saying Estacada is a zero tolerance culture, and that it's called out as not being cool or acceptable, that we're one world of different colors and different ways of looking at the world. But that's the beauty of our diversity. It's where our strength comes from.
I think another one of our strengths is that we are a small community,
Yeah.
and that we have the opportunity to really get to know each other. And so being able to build these little pods of community could really help around our students of color, and giving them the opportunity to share their culture, share who they are, so that things like stereotypes and bias can be kind of flooded out, and, you know, they see that they're not true. Because it's not only helpful for the students of color to share, but it's also helpful for us people of color, because we have our own biases and we have our own stereotypes. And when you're in this large district, you don't get that many opportunities for that. And so I think that's a strength. I think that's the beauty of living here, and that we should really lean into that. And, you know, you might not be able to change some parents, but you might catch a few.
Yeah.
And, you know, one more on your team is always a good thing.
I think getting the students involved as well. I'm thinking about, for example, there's been some student council videos where the kids are trying to, in the high school, they're trying to promote a message about attendance and things along that line. And I think if the kids hear it from their own peers too, that's going to also bring that community together at the same time.
And I'll also say that our city leaders need to be more responsible. You know, I stopped going to that city council. It was, I don't want to get into depth, but the city leaders, starting with the mayor, starting with, everybody needs to be responsible and watch how they act in the community, and some of the things they say even at the city council thing, and how they act, because I didn't feel welcome there.
Really?
I can be honest with you.
Yeah.
So our city leaders need to do a better job at trying to promote this too, and just stop, you know, even some of the things they were saying about marijuana in the thing,
Industrial park,
or
yeah.
people selling fruit on the side of the road. We had a city council person continue to bring that up. What do you think the parents and those kids see that? We kept hearing about fruit set on the side of the road because they felt like it was drugs in the fruit. To me, I'm offended of that.
Yeah.
You know, when you say things like that. If that wasn't a person of color, would you think there was drugs in the fruit?
Yeah.
And I hate to tell you, some of that fruit looked better than what was in harvest.
Probably was.
Yeah, and so with that, our city leaders have to be more responsible on how they act and the things that they say, especially at that city council meetings, because I'm sorry, I don't feel welcome there. And they say some horrible, they have some horrible behaviors over there, and I hate to, again, I'm not trying to go there, but it start with our city leaders. They do need to do a much better job at showing that this stuff is wrong. When they start doing that, then you will see that it will spread to the community, but it's gonna take our leaders being more responsible and understand, if you are mayor, you need to handle yourself in a certain way. You gotta carry yourself. Me as a manager, I'm held to a higher calling.
Sure.
And our city leaders, that's where it's gonna start. When you see our city leaders change their behaviors, then you'll start seeing the community change their behaviors.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that.
With the incidents that occurred, the 5 incidents or whatever, what are the consequences? What steps do you guys take?
When we get these things, it looks like all of these 5 that I can recall, students were suspended out of school for 3 days. And then when they come back, they have to go through what we use, I'm sure you've heard the terminology before, but a restorative justice process where both the offender and the victim kind of come together, and the victim gets the opportunity to kind of educate on the impact of what those words mean. I can tell you, just looking at this data, 3 of the 5 deal with the N-word as the primary one. Yeah.
So 2 things I just want to comment about is 2 of those 5 were in elementary school.
Yeah, 4th grade.
So, kind of on what other people were saying is to start younger with the culture change process. And what I really think is with the pushback from our community around, we had the DEI advisory committee abolished for the city, which then this came up after that. And I do have to say that, I don't necessarily even want the word to get out in the city that we even exist, just because I'm afraid that they're gonna come and abolish our committee for the same reasons.
They won't take it away from, they have no authority over us,
Right,
so we're good.
but-
But I hear what you're saying, I do.
With that being
Yep.
said, if we are able to move forward in a way and start trying to change that culture, the school district is really gonna need to find the allies
Yes,
for the pushback with the community.
Yes.
And being in that foundational, corner with the school district, because it's going to be hard.
Yes.
I feel like, because starts with the parents, it starts at home.
Yep.
If it's really starting with our elementary kids, that's a really rapid,
yeah,
fast track to that idealism. And so I feel like that's really the parents talking at school,
sure.
So we're
Yeah.
really gonna have to, not only us, who do we know in the community? What face groups do we have with people who would be allies to the school district as we try to move forward in changing this
Yeah.
for our students, because it has to happen at that younger age.
yeah. Well, and I appreciate that you talked about, the 2 incidents at the 4th grade level at the elementary school, because I do believe that, when you get to that middle school age and the high school age, you can start making kind of your own thoughts and decisions for yourself. But any of this type of stuff that I see at the elementary age, it's a direct repetition from what they're hearing at home. Those are the words they know, those are those types of things. And so you're right on the money there, yeah.
I am sure that we're not the first school district in the United States that have had this issue.
No, I think
No.
every school district in the
Yeah,
United States has
but
these issues.
are there school districts who've said, we draw the line here? If so, what did those school districts do? How did they educate? How did they build a culture of inclusiveness? I mean, you mentioned that the management theory we adopted here in 2019, not theory, but practice.
Yeah,
I'd love to know, rather than us recreating the wheel again, if there's some framework that we can learn about and adopt and
Yeah.
start to bring into our culture so that in 5 years' time, we look back and we say, "Oof, we moved the needle."
yeah. No, I think those are great questions, and there's a lot of great positive examples of what other school districts have done, and we have looked at those, and we have, researched those, and again, like I said, we have fallen short of executing some of those strategies. And I will just, again, transparently and vulnerably say, part of the things that I want to do is I would like to have it a strategy and action that is occurring at the school every day and really improving our culture. But the things, and I could be wrong for saying this, so I'm not saying that this is the way, but one of the things that concerns me is I don't want our school district to be accused of going woke. I don't want, to have, this type of turmoil that ultimately stunts our ability to do the most important thing because we get wrapped into some political ideology or something like that. And so I've been pretty cautious about trying to move us in a direction that makes us an easy target for the 80% or for the parents who we can't change. And I'm admitting that that's not the right play either, because what we've done to be cautious of that hasn't moved things as fast as I'd like it to. But I just also wanted to stipulate, we want parental support just of the school district in general, and some of those accusations, and coming back to what a lot of the school districts that have done well, they've also just been eviscerated by so many other parents at school board meetings. I mean, it's part of the reason why you see every other school district with declining enrollment, because families of all races are pulling their kids out of it because they don't want their children exposed to some of the ideologies that doesn't reflect even who we are as people. I don't know if that makes sense. I just kind of wanted to just
Yeah.
share. Yeah.
But this committee doesn't need to worry about being woke.
No. Yeah.
It's our job to say,
Yeah.
this is what we need.
We
So-
just want all kids to
Yeah.
feel welcome and treat each other with respect.
Of course.
But I'd like to do that without stepping on those hot wires.
Yeah.
I guess just for my clarity, as a person of color,
Sure.
and somebody who's, more middle ground, what exactly is the parameters for being woke? Because as a person of color, it meant something different for us. And then people who were extremely conservative kind of took and ran with it to mean something else. And so just for my clarity purposes,
Sure.
what does that look like when you say you don't want to appear not to be going woke?
Well, I'm not a good definer of those things because I'm also middle of the road, and obviously I have my own personal things. But when I think about the perception of the school district, woke, the word woke is really the interpretation of each and every single individual in terms of what that means. And the problem is it's irrelevant what I think is woke, but as soon as a mob of parents who cling together and just destroy us on social media and use words like woke, then I've lost complete control of the ultimate thing that I was trying to accomplish, and that's improving something. And so my definition of woke doesn't matter as much as the people who utilize our services accuse us of woke. And really, it doesn't matter what their definition is too. As soon as that word comes out, it makes what we're trying to do ineffective. And that's their whole intent.
Well, I agree with that. I guess
Yeah.
what I'm trying to ask is, what policies, procedures are you trying to avoid to give off that interpretation? Does that make a little bit more sense?
That's a fair question, yeah. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that kids are learning at grade level standards, and we're trying to avoid hot topic political types of readings, types of things that parents would accuse us of indoctrinating children that doesn't align with their specific family and/or religious values. And so, as we see, around the country, different books that students are being required to read, different types of instructional materials that are edgy, but you could still accomplish the same learning standard without the edginess. Like, that's what we're trying to avoid. And so that all parents, every single parent, knows that they're sending their kids to the Estacada School District to learn how to read, to learn how to do math, and to be competitive when going into a job. I'm ultimately trying to avoid the exposures of some of the worldly things that are preventing kids from being able to just receive that education.
And that's true. It's
That may
just
not
that
be
when
a
you.
good answer, but it's my
I hear
answer.
you. It's just,
Yeah.
for me, when
Yeah,
I hear
totally.
that, I hear people who are afraid of people of color. They're afraid of women. They're afraid of somebody saying, I'm gay, those things like that. And
Yeah.
even when I think about the live that you did and the question that had a lot of the community upset.
Yeah.
It was frustrating because that's important data.
Yes, it is.
It fuels the discussion that we're having right now about
Yeah.
bullying and racism. And so when you have people who are, and not to mean this in a bad way, ignorant, they need to be educated. And
Yeah.
so that might mean that you're gonna look a little quote-unquote woke, even though that's it's not what the word came into
No,
being
I
about.
know what you mean.
So
And
it's
I-
just,
and I-
I'm sorry, I'm getting a little
No,
bit passionate
no,
because
go. Yeah,
it's
you
bothersome
go.
to me
Yeah.
because then those kids that we're talking about who don't feel respected, how are they supposed to learn?
Right.
How am I supposed to focus on reading, writing, math, if people are calling me the N-word
Yeah.
in the hallway, in the locker room? And these are just, my child's experiences.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what some of the other kids who don't have anybody that they can talk to about.
Yeah.
And so I hear you, and I understand you have such a hard job. But as a parent, I'm just like, whoa, but what about my kid?
Right.
I don't really care about other people thinking that
Yeah.
we're woke. I want my kid to be protected.
For
And
sure.
that's how I feel about all the kids who are enduring that.
Yeah.
And just like she was saying, we've got 5 incidences, but I know it's way more than that. I could tell you about 5 just that
Yeah.
my son has brought home in these
By
last
by
few
no
months.
means am I saying or conveying that this is the only thing that's going on. In fact, I said that these are the only things that we have documented, but we know that these things are happening regularly, which is why we want to improve. And I do hope, as you saw that Facebook Live, I went right into the lion's mouth on social media, and I tried to convey the importance of this survey and convey how critical this data is for us, not only for racism, but for drug use, for suicide. I hit all of the political hot topics. And so while I have to be politically sound to serve all people, I hope that was at least evidence to you that I was not afraid to go right onto social media and call that out. But I have no ability to control the ignorance that's there. And so,
I understand that. It's
Yeah.
just,
yeah, but I
something
also
does
hear
need to
you.
be done
Yep.
because these numbers are, they're not good.
Yeah,
I was gonna,
no, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
either way.
go ahead.
Yep.
I was just gonna say, when I was in high school, my junior and senior year, I was the president of the Latino Club. I know that wasn't a thing a couple years after I left. It became the Culture Club, I believe. But when I was there, and I was in the Latino Club, something that we were able to do every year was go to the Julio Cesar Chavez Conference.
Yep, we still do
For
that.
leadership, and we
Yep.
got to learn about scholarships that we can get, programs that we can join after high school.
Yep,
I know that really isn't a thing with Todos Juntos anymore, but there's MECHA in other school districts that's kind of like the same thing. And one other thing that we used to do is like Day of the Dead, and we'd have like a display, or, we're not giving anybody any information that they don't want to know, but we would celebrate those cultures. And I know there were other clubs that did other things, and is that not something that's done at the school anymore? Is allowed, or is that something that would be considered
Yeah.
woke now?
go ahead.
So Leticia and Noemi, Leticia came to our last meeting. They had a MECHA club, I believe for a few years. It started to have poor attendance, but they still do some of the events. They go on some of the field trips. They do De los Muertos celebrations. They have celebrations with families. So I think those cultural
So do they ever
celebrations.
spread any of that, like in the school? Like, is that allowed? Is that?
Oh, it's absolutely
Okay.
allowed, yeah.
It
there's
was in the
nothing-
commons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's-
And when we had MECHA, it was all students that attended,
Right, yeah.
not just our Latino communities,
same.
which was great and a positive thing. So
Yeah, but-
we try and expose as many kids as
Yeah.
possible.
And I know we still do the Cesar Chavez
Oh,
event
okay,
annually.
That's great.
Yeah,
Didn't know that was still going.
yep.
Anybody else have anything to add?
mean, it's not that we become woke, it's that the perspectives of those who hold a view that is rigid in this area use woke as a slanderous remark
Yes.
to put us down. We're not being woke, we're being humanistic. But the audience of right-wing Christian National, whatever it is, uses woke as a global put-me-down because of their fear, and because of their perspective. That's what woke is.
I
Well,
think-
go ahead.
I think one thing that we are facing as a district is we have to meet our community where they're at, whether we like where they're
Yeah.
at or not.
Right.
And so we have to find a way to have this really vital conversation with our community about how we address and tackle racism in a way that unifies this community and
Yeah.
instead of dividing it. And that is a very challenging thing to do without dividing our community further. So we have to meet our community where they're at and hopefully keep rising it. But it is really challenging because of where we are at right now. And I think that's what
Yeah.
Superintendent Carpenter is speaking to is we struggle to figure out a messaging that we can have with our community that can unify people behind this, because we have got to get, and to your point, we can't get everyone on board, and that's okay. But if we can at least get a majority of our community to get on board with this and start having these conversations at home, start having the conversations at city council meetings and in our community and with their neighbors, that is what we have to figure out how to do effectively.
So do we have any plans for a town hall meeting to like start that conversation with parents? Like maybe just for the elementary school and one for the middle school and one for the high school, so that we can have like these types of open dialogue conversations?
Yes is the answer to this, and this is, I appreciate this conversation, and I always want to keep talking about it, but at some point, we need to do something. And so I appreciate you moving us into this section of the conversation, because I want to do something to get us started. And if town halls is step one, I'm happy to host, be a part of, and allow people to talk about it. Yes, but what else can we do?
A lot of times, people need to be in another person's shoes. You know, allowing somebody to be able to discuss, even though you think it's a joke, that it didn't make me feel very well. Like my wife was saying about people saying woke.
Yeah.
You know, we look at it differently. But if we're able to, like you're saying, you have these town hall meetings where you can able to explain how this feels,
Yeah.
and try to get somebody to walk in your shoes. And, you know, I always like to go back to some of the teachings of Christ when they were going to stone the lady. And he asked the first person without sin,
Yep.
cast the first stone, and everybody dropped
Yeah.
the stone. Basically, they knew that they had sinned also, and they couldn't throw the stone.
Yeah, I
And
think
if we-
Jesus was even writing the sin in the
Yes.
sand right in front of him.
Yes. And the thing is putting people in the shoes, letting a young kid be able to say, hey, I went through this and this is what made me feel. And then, you know, and it's also being able to sometimes you gotta look at that kid the kid that did the bad portion, or however you want to put it, we got to show them grace too. Because it might be something that has been embedded to them for a long time. And so now they're trying to say, well, I don't mean anything, but, you know, because I also think that as an African American, some of our music didn't handle it right. They tried to take the N-word back, which I thought was ridiculous. We were calling our own self, but we changed it to Nigga.
Yep.
I didn't agree with that, because I looked at it as the same thing. So this racism hasn't been handled correctly for a long time. But again, trying to get people to, you know, put yourself, you know, even my son can put himself in that person's shoes that think that he's worthless. Why is he thinking that? I would love to dig in that mind of, why do you think because of my skin color that I'm less of you?
So it sounds like you're talking about story sharing.
Yeah.
The video, almost similar to the video kind of idea that I was
Yeah.
thinking of, at least to get, you know, if you had the high school kids doing a video, the elementary kids could watch it, they're watching their peers, and that's where I'm thinking, that's where the message might be helpful too.
I like that.
That's a great idea. I hear so often in this community that we don't have a problem with racism because we're such a homogeneous white community that they are not experiencing it. But I think seeing some of those stories and hearing the impact is what moves people, hearing students that have experienced those things, and we would love the opportunity to tell those stories.
And I would say also highlighting the consequences of it, just thinking about the numbers from the survey about suicide. And so knowing that when you have that type of bullying, especially about something that you can't change about yourself, that it could cause that very heavy consequence, not just for that person's family, but for the community. And so it, you know, kind of ties all those things that you were bringing into the live together.
If you tell that story, you might reach those parents that's been, you know, that way all their life. Maybe, you know, and again, you need to, I think, even not only hear the people of color's story, I think you need to hear somebody's story of why they feel like that.
Yeah.
What, you know, because sometimes you get people that's judged and they're not like that, but they kind of get pushed toward that because of certain things.
No, that's good.
I do have a question that you may or may not be able to answer. What organizations have we reached out to that deal with racial bullying? Because I know Portland has quite a few.
Yeah,
Have we? None. So I think that's a big first step,
Yeah,
especially when we're talking about story sharing, because a lot of families who have went through those things, especially when you get to thinking about suicide, that's one of the ways that they cope is they start up these organizations to speak on behalf of the kid that doesn't have a voice anymore. And then I had one additional question about the teacher trainings. My son has mentioned that sometimes when they do report it to teachers, they just kind of say, don't do that, even though we're supposed to have a zero tolerance policy.
yes, true.
And so it seems to me that maybe the teachers need to be trained a little bit more heavily on the importance of that zero tolerance policy.
That's a good one.
The last thing on the story sharing, I think that when you're sharing the story, I think you should hide the identity and show it at the end. Because it might not be a person of color that's talking about what they went through. And I think that will help humanize the things also. Just kind of hide the identity, and right at the end of the story, you show, and you're like, oh, I thought it, you know, he was African American, could be someone that's Caucasian that had felt like that.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that being able to share those stories will help, and it also hiding that identity will say, hey, there's nothing different between me and you,
Yeah.
but except pigment.
Yep.
That's it. We both got hearts, both got livers, lungs.
Yep.
The same thing. We both, if you cut us, we're red.
Yeah.
We bleed red. So,
Yes.
you
Amen.
know.
Yep. That's good.
And anybody else have anything to add?
I did have a question about the QR code. Danny had mentioned they're not allowed cell phones at school anymore.
True.
Is that online somewhere or sent home with them?
I'd
You
have
can
to-
also use your Chromebook.
Yes.
Oh, it's on their
When,
Chromebook?
we did the community group over the summer for transitioning the kids. We talked about using the Chromebook because of the
To like
cell
email the
phone.
teacher? Or-
It's just a QR code. They have cameras on the
Yeah,
Chromebook.
there's cameras on the
Yep.
Chromebooks.
Yeah.
We also have Safe Oregon as a website that anyone could report things anonymously, and that gets sent to the schools. So each of the schools put out Safe Oregon information as well. It's another resource.
I just want to say that I love the idea of celebrating our differences at the elementary level. Like, we have all those different types of identifying people that were polled and how they identify. And I think we should be celebrating every single one of us,
That's a good idea.
you know, and starting very young. And if we're celebrating and seeing the positives, maybe more positives can outweigh all the negative stuff that they're messaging that the kids are getting from other
And to
places.
tie it into academics, you know, making sure that our literature and the things that we're using are diverse, so they do get a
Yes.
chance to, you know, see different worldviews and see different looks, and, you know, because even amongst, you know, the white population, there is a lot of difference and a lot of variation, and it's the same in every ethnicity. And so that can kind of help, because people expect you to be a certain way because you are a person of color. And a lot of times you don't meet that expectation. All right, are we ready to move on? So
Yeah, but
our,
let me conclude, because I want to, no, you're good. I want to take action on this, and I want to make sure, and so, and I have some money set aside to be able to prioritize this, and I want to use that to be able to support this. And so, you know, things that I think we can do immediately is, you know, start building plans and finding students or community members that want to create videos to be able to tell their story and their side of this perspective. That's doable from us, from that. I would like to reach out to some, I've got several superintendent friends from many big and diverse districts, and I'll look to see what are some good racial organizations that can kind of help us cater through that process. And then town halls and different perspectives. I'd like to work a little bit more on that in terms of what we want to accomplish in that, so that I guess maybe just start planning what those look like, because we want, one, we want people to show up to it, and two, we want to put a presentation together that is impactful in a way that people walk out, they feel like it was worth their time, and is starting to make a difference. And so I'd like to begin the planning phases of what that looks like. And maybe in the springtime is an opportunity potentially to roll out what those look like there. And then I'll start working on the training for teachers too, because we do have a couple professional development days later in the year where it might even be a great thing to start next school year with, kind of fresh, to say, you know, here's some opportunities to be more observant, and here's how to go through the processes. And that'd be a great way, in my opinion, to start a school year, kind of when it's fresh and they're fresh, and all of the above. Does that sound sufficient, at least for today, as we move forward on this together?
One thing I'd like to do also is make sure that this is a reoccurring agenda item, if that sounds all right to everyone, just so you can hold us accountable and
Yeah.
can get updates on our progress to ensure that we're moving forward in the direction that, and get feedback on how we're moving forward.
I was gonna say one last thing on that.
Yeah.
The main thing, I would say, the goal is not that we're trying to change anybody's mind, but meet each other.
Yes.
And understand each other's triggers. Meet each other where we are, something that you had said. We're gonna meet each other where we are and look at the triggers, and how, again, not just that we're tolerating each other, but we're respecting each other. And I think that is, if we look at that portion, then you're saying, oh, you're trying to change me because I have a problem with a person of color.
Yeah, good
You're
point.
trying to change me and make me feel some other way. No, I just want you to respect me as a human being.
Yes.
You may be having problems with my pigment, but that don't mean that I'm getting ready to do something
Yeah.
bad
We
to
don't have
you.
to be friends.
We don't have to be friends. And I
Yeah.
always say that, yeah, we don't have to
Yeah.
be friends, but we
Yeah.
just need to respect each
Yep.
other.
Totally. Well said.
There was a film made some years ago, it's a really interesting film in this regard. There was a black woman in Germany, and she would meet with skinheads who had very racial views. Because this black woman, her grandmother was a person of color, and her grandfather was the commandant of a Nazi concentration camp.
Wow.
And she was describing her background and the whole thing, and it's a very moving film.
Huh. Do you
I'll
remember what
share
it's
the name with
called?
you, Maggie,
Yeah.
and you can.
Thank you.
The only thing I'd ask for you to add to your list that you just read back
Yep.
is the thing I mentioned earlier, where if there are school districts who've had success in moving
Yeah.
the needle on this, that
Yeah.
we also look to them for their help of what, because there may be a couple of key things that we can do to effect change here. Thank you.
Okay, I'm really done now.
All right, well then we are going to move on to our district social worker who does such an amazing job connecting everybody and
Yes.
getting everybody what they need and supporting and advocating for everybody. So she is going to come and give her presentation.
I hope that you guys aren't expecting a presentation because I did not prepare one. In fact, I was telling Danny and Maggie earlier that when people ask me what I do, I kind of freeze up and I'm like, I don't know, I know I do things. I know I'm busy. So they told me that you guys would probably have more questions and that would make this a lot easier. But in general, I guess I'll start a little bit, as a social worker, my job is to help get students throughout the whole district. So I'm K-12, plus I do often end up doing a lot of preschool, because they're in our buildings. And DCLA, our Deep Creek Learning Academy downtown as well. So I serve the whole district. My job is to help the best that I can with those Maslow's basic needs, right? Like, so I'm doing everything from helping families connect to clothes and shoes and food, sometimes housing, community connection, getting community resources. That is a very simplified version of my job. It also sometimes extends into different like community understanding. So for example, right now, one of the things that we do during this time of year, every year for the last 5 years, is we have a winter gear drive, right? Where we are teaching the community that it's important to help take care of our own community. And so we have like donation boxes in the breezeways or in the front of all of the schools where people can donate items that are winter gear items, but we don't just put boxes out. I also go into classrooms and I have like a book that I read on the elementary level that talks about how like sometimes there are big problems that we can't solve, like homelessness, for instance. That's a big problem that we can't solve in 5 minutes or less. But there are small ways that we can help, and those small ways that we help make big differences. So, where I am doing, I'm trying to help mitigate immediate crisis needs, there's also kind of like a prevention model that has come to fruition within my job as well, where we're trying to teach students to understand the community around them and the different dynamics that exist within them, and also how to ask for help before we're in crisis. Because a lot of times what ends up with social workers, not just me as a school social worker, but social workers in general, what we end up doing is crisis response, right? But a lot of these crises are a lot easier to manage if we can help them before it's a crisis. So if you know that you're going to be evicted because you're having a hard time paying your rent, come and let's talk about like programs that can help you pay your rent, or other ways that we can learn to finance or budget or whatever, so that in 2 months, it's not, I have to help you find another apartment, and that's really hard to do, right? It's a lot harder to find a new place to live when rents are really high, and if you have an eviction on your record, it's really, really hard to get into another apartment. Those type of things is a lot easier to find. Oh, you need help with rent this month. Let's pay that so that you don't have an additional fine and stuff like that. So I'm doing those things, but also trying to start small and educating the community in how we ask for help before we're in need, and just removing the stigma of needing help, if that makes sense. At this point, I would just like to open it up. Questions? Oh my God, I was hoping you guys would have questions.
What can we do to better support your job?
My job? Oh, I don't know. I mean, you know, I had a lot of thoughts and feelings when I was talking about that money that, you know, like, it went to what districts? And, okay, because, you know, I mean, obviously, like, I am always busy. Like, I don't really ever have downtime. There's always referrals that I can be making, not just for clothes and shoes, but for like mental health and like I shared, like the ideal school social work job is preventative, not reactionary. So ideally, we're gonna be helping do things like lead groups that can attend to some of these things that you guys have talked about, right? Or like restorative justice practices and stuff like that. But if I don't have other people, it makes it so that I'm just responding to crisis more, right? So, you know, when I was thinking about what you mentioned, like, that's kind of sucky. And that's not our district's fault. That's not what I'm trying to make sure that's not what you guys are hearing. But I use volunteers a lot. I have parent volunteers that help with like some of the groups that I can't do with Fidelity because they get called away. So parents can come in and help with those groups or like organization. You know, we've got to a place now, one of the things I've always shared, and you guys were kind of talking about this earlier, is that Estacada is kind of a unique small town. And one of the things that I love about living here is that we do want to help take care of the people who are in here. We don't always know how, but anytime I have put a request for something out on Facebook, I have been met with a solution. So whether it's rain boots or a new fridge, we had somebody who helped a family replace their water heater one time. That is not a small thing. That was a huge thing. Estacada always turns up. And it's something that I'm really like proud of. And it's to the point now, because I've been here for coming up on 5 years, you know, when this, like for instance, when the SNAP thing came up, SNAP benefits were gonna be extinguished, they weren't gonna be a thing, we were all like wondering. I had a lot of families reaching out to me wanting to know if I had anything to help. And my solution is the same as almost everybody else's. It's like, we have a food bank downtown. I can help deliver it to your house. But I don't have a lot of things in my pockets for stuff like that. But as many people as I had reaching out because they needed help with food, I had just as many people who know that I exist within the school district who also reached out and said, how can I help? And I was able to tell them, like, hey, donate to the food bank and donate this type of stuff. Or like if you want to help, like, because there's some facets of things that I see, like, you know, when you are struggling to buy food, the first thing that gets cut is snacks for your kids, right? You're just trying to keep nutrition on the table at the meals. So like maybe provide snacks to the schools so that when kids are hungry at school, you can, you know, we can make sure kids aren't hungry at school, because if you're hungry, you're not learning. So I was really appreciative of people reaching out, asking how they could help. Because sometimes I have all of these things floating around in my head, but I don't always have the time to sit down at my computer and like type up a really nice little thing and disseminate it. So that's a way, people coming to me and asking, how can I help? And then like also like telling me like what they're good at, like how they want to help, you know, like I can shop or I can deliver or things like that. And then parent volunteers are really, really great too. And then also patience is also, like I love when people are patient. And actually everybody in the district has been really great about that. Yeah, I don't know, what else?
Anybody else?
Thank you.
I was gonna say, you
have
cover,
questions.
you cover all the schools?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny too, because, you know, like, I mean, every year I'm asked, like, what's something you need? And every year I'm like, another social worker, which is true, but like at this point now too, like if we did get another social worker, there would be this like, I don't even know like what schools I'd want to cover, because like I would be like so jealous. Like, be like, oh, you get the high school? Cool. I don't work with those kids, you know what I mean? Like, so I don't know, like, where, yes, another social worker would be like, I mean, obviously that's the most ideal thing for me. However, I do think that there's a lot of things that come up that, where our community needs to come together too. And I think that that's one of the things that I've learned the most in my 20-ish years of being a social worker in general, and it's really been highlighted since working in the schools, is that, you know, sometimes we rely on a program for an answer, when the truth is that the community coming together and us as a community looking out for our neighbors, knowing our neighbors' names, knowing who the kids are that are riding around the block, those type of things are things that are really, actually, that's what's really helpful. You know, I share this with my students all the time, but like, you know, well, not all the time, but like when it comes up, I suppose I'm not like running around saying this, but, you know, the only difference between me and a person that is like living or trying to survive on the streets is that I have a community that is there to support me, right? So if something were to happen and I couldn't pay my mortgage, I know that my mom would take me and my family in. I know that my father-in-law would take me and my family in. I know that like coworkers would help me out. Or if something happened to me and I was incapacitated for some reason, I know that people would be there to help pick up my kids and get them to school, or maybe bring them home, or that I have the funds for daycare, right? But a lot of the people that I work with don't have the community that can do that. They're single parents for whatever reason, or there might be grandparents. We have a very large population in our school district of grandparents that are helping raise their grandchildren. And so it's a lot different, like I mentioned, you know, if you can go to somebody and say, hey, I can't pay my rent this month. And someone can say, oh, hey, let me see what I can do. Like, whether that's just give somebody $500 for rent, although that would be nice if rent was only $500, that'd be great. You know, like, maybe they can do the financial thing, but also, like, it's like, oh, maybe your kid can come over and hang out with my kid after school so you can work, like, you don't have to miss work, or I can pick your kid up if they get in trouble, or, you know, like there's so many dynamics that we deal with where community is the answer, and that's one of the things that I am working on, I think, as a social worker, and the things that help me a lot as a social worker too, like when I reach out to Estacada and I say, hey, anybody got a fridge? Or how many people reached out and said they wanted to help out with the food bank has been like receiving so many donations, which is such a blessing to see. Or, you know, I think about, you know, Danny was talking about safe routes to school. You know, one of the things that I'm thinking about as a parent that lives in Campanella is like getting a walking group together. You know what I mean? Like that can be a solution, is like parents taking turns walking kids to school. And that's one of the things that I think of, like, not just as a social worker, but the intersectionality, you know, as a mom and a citizen in the community, like, how can we come together and support each other? Because those are the safe factors. When we feel like we know our neighbors and our community, then we feel more comfortable to come to somebody and say, hey, that kid just called me a racial slur and I need some support, or hey, I need some food, I don't have anything to eat at home, or you know, like, hey, I don't know how I'm getting to school. You know, all these things that you guys talked about, like, in the meeting. It was very hard to just sit over there and listen, by the way. Not my forte. But, you know, all those things, like, there are solutions in our community if we can come together and get to know each other, like you said, like those shared stories. Like, we get to know who each other are, and we feel more comfortable reaching out to each other. That's gonna help me the most as a social worker, if you guys wanna come together. So, I don't know if anybody else has any other questions.
Well, I just want to say thank you to Bettina, and since hiring her several years ago, it's just been a tremendous asset to our community, and while it's overwhelming to think that she, oversees and helps all of our, 2,000 students, but it's even more overwhelming when you say that our school district is 750 square miles, because a large portion of her job is making home visits and meeting with families and supporting them where they're at. And if you think about our community and some of the homes that she enters and some of the driveways that she walks down, these are all really, important things, but also difficult things. And I just want to say I had the opportunity to join Bettina on a home visit, which was really special, just to watch Bettina work with a family and really remove barriers to give kids the opportunity just to come to school in the first place. And so you cannot measure the impact that Bettina has in our school district and the lives that she's changing, shaping, and supporting. And so you really are an all-star in our district, and we appreciate you greatly.
I don't know that it answered questions, though. You guys made me feel like people had wanted to know what.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Could you do a very shameless plug for the groups that you're doing, please?
Oh, my gosh. Well, right now, we only have a Girl Circle group going on, but Girl Circle is really cool because and then there's an equivalent of Girl Circle Boys Council. They can start as young as 10, so we start them in 4th grade. And I will say that they are quite popular in the elementary school. If we don't keep them going, if the kids stop coming, then once they get to middle school, they're too cool to do that stuff. But they're communication groups, is what they are. It's a session of 8 sessions. We do them over recess, so they're not missing any school time. So they have to be willing to miss 1 recess a week, and then they also get to eat their lunch, so it's a 40-minute span. But we're talking about friendships and communicating. We start out really light, where we're talking about they might like a flower, and on each petal they might put something that they like about themselves. But as it goes on, it gets a little bit more intimate. One of the games the kids like to play the most is this one where they all stand up in a line, and then I ask a question, and if they are a yes to that question, they take a step forward. So it's if you have a sibling, take a step forward. If you have ever moved, take a step forward. But then it gets more vulnerable as we go on. So if you've ever been in foster care, take a step forward. If you were adopted, take a step forward. If your parents are divorced, those things that kids tend to keep to themselves because they think they're the only ones. That particular lesson is always my favorite, because they come back to the table and they're like, oh, I had no idea that you were adopted. And they're like, oh yeah, I don't talk about it very much, but yeah, or I was also in foster care. And the design of the group is to learn how to talk to each other. We have pretty strict rules about listening and respect and showing up every group. And that's Boys Council and Girls Circle, but then also, it's to practice vulnerability and community making, essentially. And then over the summer, I have more opportunity to do more groups where it's just more community building. Games groups is usually what I do. We had a pretty big elementary game group this summer, which was fun but wild. That was our first time. Nikki helped me out with that. It was our first time doing that. And it was cool, but we'll have to restructure it before next summer. And then one of the other groups I did this summer was transitions to middle school and transitions to high school. So the fifth graders coming into the middle school once a week, and then same for the high school. Once a week, we would get together and we would do like a tour of the school, and we would talk about what the rules are, because there's a lot of differences between our elementary and our middle school, and then our middle school and our high school, like the expectations, passing time, getting into lockers, I think we spent a majority of our middle school transitions group talking about bullying. And it just gives them an opportunity to meet because right now we only have 2 feeder schools. I'm actually kind of excited. Don't get me wrong, I'm nervous about the reconfiguration. However, we're not gonna have any feeder schools anymore, which will be really interesting. I'm curious to see if the anxiety about going into middle school is still as high as it is when they know or they will have at least seen all of their classmates, before getting there. But yeah, so they have the opportunity to meet the kids from the other feeder school and get to know each other on a different level. Because, when you're at school, you have to focus on class. So I don't know, I feel like the groups are successful when we have time to do them. And again, parent volunteers for those, having the background check and then going through the training to lead the groups. It's not a training that you can just it's not a group you can just jump into doing. You have to know the curriculum that we do. It's an evidence-based curriculum, so we do for our groups.
Can I just say something that kind of ties into what we were talking about with the racism thing? Is there any way that we could use the format, the structure of the groups, the girls' groups, the boys' council, to address specifically the racism?
Yeah.
Because I know that was something that was really helpful for the girls in the girls' circle. Having those small groups allows them to be very vulnerable. And being a parent volunteer really helps me to be invested in the community. So when I see those girls on the playground and they're like, hi, and my heart is melting. And I think a lot of the people in our community, they don't have that. Because I had my kids' friend groups, but I wouldn't have known these kids if I hadn't have done any of these groups. And, just hi, Dom's mom, or hi, Ezzy's mom. It really makes you invested in just thinking about how, that makes those kids feel like somebody cares about them. And I've actually had a kid say that to me, and it was just like instant tears. And so just thinking about how that opens up the door for story sharing and being able to see that we're more alike than we are different.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when Ms. Patina was explaining it, it sounded like they got a small scale of it. Is there a way to increase it? Because I think us being able to say, whoever been bullied, and you realize that you guys are, and you stand up. But I also think that that's not just for kids. I think adults should do that too.
Well, that's what I mean. When you can get parents to come in and volunteer, you're getting it twofold. You're getting to, push forward this thing of kindness and this culture of, we don't tolerate that, not just with the kids, but with the adults as well.
So is it possible to do that on a bigger scale?
Yes. Well, it sounds
We would
like
need volunteers.
Oh, yeah.
Or another social worker, yeah.
One thing I will say, just in addressing the larger scale, is we keep our groups to 10 or less, just so that everybody has the opportunity to share. So if you're wanting it to be available to the whole district, for instance, they do, I should say, they do Boys Council and Girls Circle at the middle school too. I'm not a part of them. I think it's a part of their success class or something like that.
Yeah.
So they do them at the middle school. The hard part is that you go middle school and high school, and you get a lot less involvement in groups and clubs and stuff like that, just because they're too cool. For those of us, I think we're all old enough, most of us didn't have cell phones in high school. One of the things that, I struggle with as a social worker, I think about the school dances, for instance. We have 3 school dances a year. When I was in high school, we had a dance every Friday. And I remember asking, like, why, what happened? Like, why aren't we having those things? And the answer is technology, is cell phones. And it's the same reason why they're not part of the groups and part of the clubs and things like that. They have 24/7 access to their friends via their phone, so they don't feel like they need to see them in person, as opposed to when we were in school, the school dances were where you saw your friends. The clubs and the sports, and that's where you saw your friends. If you weren't there, you were at home, like, I don't know, hanging posters up on your wall or whatever we did in the 90s, you know? Or 90s for me, I should say. You know, and so that's one of those things where, like, we have to think critically, and, you know, you guys as a RISE committee have to think critically, like, we've got technology working against us. It can be a good tool. Like I said, like, I utilize Facebook for my job all the time. I go on to Escada, buy nothings and things like that, and Escada always turns up. It can be a tool, but it's also working against us when it comes to, because what we're gonna need to do to help create these bridges is get people in person, get people to actively participate, whether it's in the parent surveys that go out or the kid surveys that they take. Like, you have to get the participation, and they're not doing it because they don't have to, because they can connect with their buddies in other ways. Groups are really great because they're in person, they're not virtual. They have to see each other's face, so they have to talk kindly to each other. They don't get to hide behind a keyboard. And I would love to host groups, even after school. Like, I've thought about that, like, how can we do this? But it comes down to budget and people. Like,
Yeah, I was gonna
you've gotta
say-
have the time and the money.
I was gonna say, when I say large scale, I'm talking about more, offer them more often.
Yeah.
Keep them at 10, so
I
people
mean,
can
if
do
I
it,
didn't have to sleep,
but no.
I didn't have to attend my family. You know what I mean? Like, I love groups. Like, that's my life. I live and breathe it. My job does not feel like, I'm not one of those people that like dreads going to work. Like, I love my job. I live and breathe like for my community. And I would do it. In fact, I have to put in boundaries because I literally would do my job all the time. And I think that if you can get people who want to do it, and there are people just don't know, we don't always know where and how to help. So if you guys have the time and capacity to form a group and say, hey, you guys want to come, I think you would get it. I think you would get people. People are longing for that connection and those shared stories. And we have so many places that you could partner with too. And I'm really good at that. I know a lot of resources in my head. So you guys can always reach out to me to help you connect to other things too. But yeah, human and time
Yeah,
capacity is what we need.
yeah.
But we've got tons of curriculum. Yeah, we've got lots of
Between-
good evidence-based groups.
A way to get it advertised so parents can be, because I'm sure there's a lot of parents that would love
If
to do
you guys
that.
do the legwork, we can advertise. That's what Maggie and Danny do.
I had something to, going back to what you said about doing the transition to middle school, just something that's come up at home is I have a fourth grader who's going to be moving from River Mill to CRE, who has brought this up many, many, many times in the last couple months. So I'm hoping that there's going to be some kind of transition work
I'm already
with
thinking
them.
about it.
So, yeah.
I don't
I
wanna
knew you would be.
guarantee
I just
anything.
wanted to bring it to light.
Yeah, no, I never want to guarantee anything just because, you know, like, I mean, we're talking like budget and time, and I don't know where I'm gonna be in the summer, and I have to, like, for my hours, I have to get them, like, we have to have the budget to have me over this summer type of stuff too, right? So I don't want to guarantee anything, but, I have been thinking about it and talking with people about, like, having a transition group. What that would look like a transition to Clackamas River, or a transition to the middle school, or a transition to high school group. The high school one was a lot less attended. I had 3-4 kids in that one, but the transition to middle school had 60 kids in it that came periodically. And I imagine that we would have a pretty big transition to Clackamas River group as well. I know the kids are nervous, and just sometimes they're never required. We had a number of kids that came once, right? That came, they wanted to see the building a little bit more. That was awesome, you know? And I know, like, even outside of that, I know that the district is working on things behind the scenes, you know, for the reconfiguration to help parents and students feel comfortable with what's happening. Like, everybody is thinking about how can we do this in the best way possible.
Have we gotten any feedback from the kids that attended the transitions on how they're doing with acclimating to the middle school?
You know, I think the number one thing was locker practice. That was like the biggest thing.
Always is.
So, I mean, we could probably, like, even just with that, like, just find a budget to get combination locks over to the fifth graders. You know what I mean? And just have them practice. And then seeing the other thing that I heard a lot of was being able to, like, really be in the building to practice going. We made it fun, and we had like scavenger hunts and stuff like that. So they really had to practice getting from one class to another. And we would like have passing time drills, like where they had to do it in that 4-minute period. And so we made it fun, and I think that they liked that. But I think beyond that, the bigger thing was that they got to see my face, they got to meet Nikki, they got to see Dr. Shields was often there, Kate Dean came when she was able to, and various other staff came. And that was the biggest thing for the students, was that they knew people who were gonna be in the building that helped them. And so, you know, when we think about the reconfiguration, I know that we have a bunch of kids. My daughter is one of them. She's going into 3rd grade next year, so she's going to be going over. But she's not as nervous because she knows Pam and Katie already, just because of my job, right? So she knows people who are there already. And there will be, I mean, I don't know who it's going to be, but I guarantee that there will be some people that are River Mill staff that will be over at
Many
Clackamas
of them,
River,
yeah.
you know. So there are going to be people in the building who they do know. And when we know that information, it'll be shared out. We're going into a different topic, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking about those transition groups
I
and
have one more
helping people.
suggestion. My occupation is peer support, and I was just thinking, I don't know what it looks like when you do the transition stuff, but having kids that are already in the school, peer supporting and partnering with the ones coming in during that time would be like amazing. I say that my daughter's got friends from Girl Scouts who are at CRE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's like, I'm so excited to see so-and-so, but that school's a maze. Because she went
Yeah.
to summer school over there, which she loved to do, but she's like, I can't find my way around.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of the things that we did have. We had 7th and 8th grade helpers at our transition group. And I think that actually probably made a bigger impact than the staff. Like knowing that they would have other kids in the school that they could ask, because kids like to go to kids, right? We just know that. And so, you know, we had like probably like 5 or 6 consistent kids who were, would we call them mentors? And so they got to see like some kids that they knew who were gonna be there. And I don't know what that looks like. I can't really talk about that, but that would be really, really awesome if we could make something like that happen. But I don't know what our capacity is for that. All right.
Well said. Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, any other closing remarks or comments, requests?
Thank you, Bettina, for everything you do.
Yeah, great job.
Thank you.
Great job.
All right, well, our next meeting will be on December 17th at 6:00 p.m. And if there is no further business, we will now adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Good meeting.